today's work session. Council President Burrell is out of town for the meeting, and Councilman Robinson will be joining us around 5 o'clock. He's coming from out of town himself. But we'll go ahead and get started. First on the work session is discussion of landscape architect services.
Don't mean to gang up on you, but we've all kind of...
Hey, we got 3 over here, too. We can come on.
Got you outweighed.
You're the media.
Maybe not.
One of the challenges we've kind of, as a team, have run into is that we all equally have skill sets into looking at how we can enhance certain areas of the city or make an improvement of public or park space or right-of-way space, whatever. But the one tool that we don't have in our tool bag is having that design professional that has the ability to not only look at the landscaping but the hardscaping and all those components of it that kind of bring the whole project together. And you know, some of the things that we've been trying to develop for purposes of consistency and moving forward is we're looking at a vernacular book, so that if we're going to replace a bathroom at North Beach, what is it going to look like? So is it going to have that specific aesthetic and vernacular that is complementary to what has come before here in the city and will hopefully go forward? And I think the one thing that I think we lack in Public Works is we have mad landscaping skills, meaning we can propagate plants, we can plant plants, we can grow plants, we can make an area just go forth. But we do not have the in-house capacity, if we have a completely blank canvas, is to develop a landscape plan, and that may include hardscaping to have recommendations and options of what plants would work best, what are native versus non-natives and things of that nature. Once we have that, we can create it, and we can keep it maintained and move forward. So in that aspect of it, that is where Public Works kind of looks at if we had a on-call pre-established landscape architect, that when we had a retrofit of an existing area or a new area, an example would be is that the roundabout that we're going to get hopefully funded for $1.3 million. The only thing that grant's going to pay for is to put sod down in all of the soil areas. What comes next is going to be on us, and to have an on-call landscape architect that could work along with us to develop the final schematic of what that landscape area in the center and on the boundaries would just be a wonderful benefit. And I think that then ties into planning and community development.
Yeah, and I've got some slides just to back up a little bit, because I think it came to our attention really more than anything after we did that PL study, and there were a lot of recommendations that came out of it, and we realized, okay, we need assistance in these projects and implementing them. We need a design, and it includes landscape and hardscape, like Richard said. So, even these safety strips where they go, the neck downs, for some of the crosswalks that they determined are safety hazards. Even where these go, what type of signage, what type of beacons are best, what fit with our vernacular, like Richard was saying. The expansion of the CBD, that Fairhope Avenue, that great partnership that's going on down there with the city and the developer. How do we re-landscape this area? Where does the neck down go there to slow traffic? So it's just designing these things. Same with Johnson Avenue, improving those cross sections. Everything we realized that came out of it, if we had someone that could just help us with the design aspect of it, we could then, as Richard said, we have the expertise for growing the plants and doing the labor and everything. It's just the design work that we're missing.
I agree with that too. I think we have all the skills in the world to plant and grow and those kind of things. I think what this would bring is the artistic component to it, that brings an aesthetically pleasing look, a consistent look. Again, knowing the type of things to plan for certain times of the year and so forth, but also that artistic look, bringing in ideas and thoughts from other places that this particular person, whoever it may be, has experience, and bring it and using their experience, their artistic ability, along with the hardscape and also the plants and so forth. I think that's the key
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, that's another good example going
Right.
down to the bay. This will be a very traveled path, and it's another one that needs to be
Right. Well,
planted.
and I think we do a great job now. The city looks beautiful. I mean, but there are areas, we're great. We need to be better in some places like this right here, and I think this would help us achieve that goal of the key areas through town that have a lot of visitors and a lot of citizens there, trying to make it the best it can be. And again, using
And
those
safe.
artistic skills to really help get a
So
plan
then-
together and let us implement the plan. We just need help getting that plan together.
And this is the vehicular pedestrian informational signage, even that, implementing that could benefit from this kind of assistance. And the vehicle scale, pedestrian scale fixtures, so we started talking about putting a vernacular book together, but having that expertise to really develop it. It's a one-time thing, and it's finished, and we can follow it from there on out.
And I think it's important to mention a little more about the vernacular, this design kind of book for the city. It's very important. As Richard said, we're replacing things, we're building new bathrooms, that we have something that's consistent. You get a consistent look, that you're in Fairhope when you see this particular color or style or whatever it may be. I think it helps everything remain consistent and looks very, very nice. And I think that would be a huge asset. Just that in and of itself, it would also help us. And when ordering things and so forth, we already know what the look would be and so forth. I think that's also a very important component of this discussion.
And if you look up there, you can see some examples. Like on the left is, what exists now, and on the right is something that might be, more appropriate in the CBD signage, and same with lighting. On the left, it's what we have now, which is a Cobra head, I believe they're called, Richard.
We can reuse that too.
And they can be reused, yeah. They would go where they're appropriate outside of the CBD. Well, these are just, slides we found from other
Other towns are comparable.
towns. Mm-hmm. So this is all just to give you an idea, the visual stuff. And we could do one of two things. I think what we realize is we'll either be putting these small things together and coming back, like we need help with this, and coming back each time there's a
piecemeal
project,
approach
or
to it, yeah.
piecemeal, or we may or may not use the service for 2 months. I mean, but at least they'd be on call if we did need it. And that was the idea.
Just from a fiduciary and accountability standpoint, we'd go through a process to request proposals / qualifications, go through, select a vendor, but we'd want them to give us a rate. What if we called them and said we needed you to work on this particular little project, give us, if they said it would be this many man hours at this rate that's already pre-established in that qualification. But how I foresee it is that all three of our departments have professional service monies budgeted on an annual basis. So we would only be setting it up that they're available to us, already pre-qualified and pre-contracted at a known rate, with a not to exceed a monthly amount combined or in the aggregate. But also, it could not be used if we didn't have any remaining money in that professional service budget that we have established. So just having the ability
Right.
that, hey, we need to redo, we're putting in a new bathroom at North Beach. That's something y'all budgeted, but there's no landscape plan for it. Will you look at our building and give us a recommendation of how we need to landscape it so it is as pleasing? That's, and that may be 3 hours at $150 an hour, so and that would be something we would either budget out of that project fund or out of the professional service budget. So it's just having that kind of set up and in place so that we have that tool. And I think that my goal would be is that this person at least have a knowledge that they would be with us for maybe a 2-year period of time, and with a reconsideration for an additional year, like we do with many professional service or many contract budgets, so that there can be some consistency, so that we're producing the same product all the way along, so that things start looking the same.
And I think this would be almost a budget neutral, because right now, previously for many years, There is a professional services agreement in place for the planning department to do reviews of engineering reviews of applications. Since Richard has been here, he does all those reviews, and so we've not been using that. So that's money right there that has not been used, that has been budgeted. But because we have our in-house talent now to do that, we don't use that anymore, or very, very rarely that would we use it, only on a project that has been reviewed previously by that person. So from the budgetary standpoint, it's almost budget neutral because we're not using that money now that we've had budgeted to us. And right, and so from that perspective, I don't think we're really not asking for anything new. It's just reallocating, realigning that budget to go for a different service that we don't have in-house now.
So that was one thing, but also, and I don't know if y'all have questions about that, but the visual preference survey was under this conversation too, so we need to visit that too while we're here. But
And again, the visual preference survey, as we said last time, is, we hear a lot about what we don't like. We don't want to be like Airport Boulevard. We don't want to be this or that. The visual preference survey is a way to visually look at certain types of developments, landscaping, seating, you name it, streets, street design, and so forth, and saying, I like that, I don't like that. And so that will help us as we go through this process with the comprehensive planning process we're going to go through with the Restore Act funds. It'll help us further define what Fairhope wants to be, what we want to look like, what kind of things are acceptable, or that it are in keeping with the character. And it works well. I mean, you're finally able to put something visually together that we all are looking at. Every time we describe something, everybody has their own vision of what that is, but when we actually have a photograph we're all looking at and comparing and contrasting with other photographs, it allows us to better align our thoughts on what we think is acceptable and what we want to see.
And even on the new website, it'll have a place for developers, where it'll say, what are we looking for? And that would be a tool that could go there for developers to look and say, oh, okay, I'm interested in doing that. That's what Fairhope wants.
And this initiated primarily from Greeno Road. Greeno Road is a key point coming into the city. It's very, very important that we do that the right way. This will help us do that. In addition to Greeno Road, this will help us in other parts of the city as well. So it's kind of a twofold benefit.
Yeah.
All right, so this individual or this company that you'd contract with, they would help develop that kind of base plan. This is what we're looking for, and then they would also be on contract for any different projects that you wanted to reach out to them up to that, whatever that threshold is that y'all would have collectively.
Absolutely. And that may be something that Sherry Lee and something she's working on needs that kind of support. It may be specifically a public works project. I just think that I know that recently we spent a little bit of money to look at what we can do to enhance the main pier entrance, and for a very small amount of money we got some really great options that we're looking at, hopefully bringing back to you and saying we'd like your input on this, and we'd like to move forward. It's those type of things, but I think from a public works standpoint is that as long as we have a good plan, and again, I would foresee when it's a public works related project, our horticulturist is sitting in with this landscape, and they're having a conversation, because there's got to have that cooperation to know that the person who's going to be doing the work and propagating the plants and maintaining the plants has a good understanding where everybody's trying to get to. But that's where we would use it the most. And I think the other frustration that I have is having some early work done to develop a standard. And I think that as we develop this, we bring that back to you for y'all's input as well. But my prime example is the library has a grant for a little pocket park, and we spent more time trying to decide what kind of park bench they wanted. Okay, and if we had a standard vendor that we had come to that as we replace and add park benches, this is what we're going to order, so that you start getting that uniformity. And as an engineer, I like things all in a row. Public waste baskets. I love those green carts that we use, but let's just say they weren't built for beauty; they're built for function. And I would love to get to the point that in our really nice public spaces that we have a waste receptacle that's attractive yet functional, but it needs to be the same everywhere because one, cost controls, and two, serviceability and that type of thing. those are kind of the things that I'm looking at, and getting that support and building something that folks that come next don't have to kind of wander around in the dark figuring which way we're going. And
We had hoped we could do it internally. I mean, we're incredibly optimistic and ambitious internally. And it's just, I think we realize it takes a certain expertise and time that we don't have to devote to it to create that kind of guide. I mean, it really does take a specific expertise to develop that.
We have a ballpark dollar amount, you're talking about capping that, or?
You're saying like
That kind of be job specific, wouldn't
yes, and you know, and I
Well,
think
to be like a not to exceed or something.
it?
Total.
You know, my question is, I'm listening to all this and the fact that you're gonna, basically you want to use your budgets to utilize the money to hire a particular individual. And with that, with the projects and I'm calling, you know, whatever small amount of money you're using to do a design job on it, why can't you just call whoever you'd like to call up and do that, to use it within your budget as opposed, I mean, I'm not quite following what you need from us. If that's what you want to do, it's within the budget and primarily budget neutral, unless it's something that came over the budget.
well, I think our first assumption is that in the aggregate, in a given year, it would be more than $2,500. Okay, so that puts us in a position where we have to meet a certain procurement guideline. Okay, if it's less than $2,500, mayor can approve it. But so we're already making the assumption that between 3 departments minimum, and we're not really including Tom Cool, which may have some need of these services as well, that we're going to spend on an annual basis more than $2,500 with this individual, because I don't see anybody who's going to be interested in a gig that's that's locking them down for an annual contract that's going to be less than $2,500 in the aggregate. So
Now,
what we're asking for is just, but I think the other thing is having whoever is the qualified and selected design professional, that we have them under a contract for at least a period of time so that we get that consistency through what we're trying to accomplish.
Now, when you say under contract, are you saying retainer or under a contract that they're going to bill at X amount per hour when their service is needed?
That's correct.
it's not something you're paying them just
Not
to
a
be on
retainer.
call.
No,
No.
No,
It would
only if you use
only
them.
be when
Right.
When you
they
need 'em.
produce
Yeah.
work product
That's
that,
right.
that we would call them up and say, hey, we need to work on this, and then they would come back and say, we're estimating it's
Gotcha.
3 architects' hours and 2 draftsman hours, and the agreed upon rate is X and Y, so the total amount is this if we, and that would be it. But no, it would be no paying to do nothing. It would only be
So basically, it just speeds things up
that's
Yeah.
correct.
without having to go through the,
Exactly.
Which is the primary objective.
Yeah.
Right, I'm with you.
So we can get things.
I'm just trying to get
done.
through, I'm a pretty simple guy. I like,
Yeah.
Cut to the chase. And I think it came up too when we talked, the bike rack conversation in that corner, and we talked about, we can't really put it there because there've been a lot of things that have just been stopped because we can't design it. And so they're sitting in a queue, and we're anxious to implement, so this would help.
This is an example, though, of just anything that's $2,500 because of the limit being reduced from 15,000. So it's really an inefficient limit right now that we should address in 2019 budget, because we are doing very well financially.
And to give you an idea, I think the professional service budget for Public Works in total is $15,000 this year. And I would never perceive that we'd use more than 50% of that on landscape service, architectural services.
That's
Because
kinda
we still
where-
got to hire a surveyor here and there to pin a right of way or, and that type of thing, so.
We're not talking about something that could get into some kind of astronomical number, then we're talking
No.
No.
15, 20,000, 25,000 total.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
collectively.
thinking
Right.
if it's more than a couple of thousand a month on average, that would be high, so.
These are mostly small projects here and there.
Yeah.
basically for consistency, you're looking at a turnover rate theoretically. I mean, it could certainly go longer, but for every 2 years.
Yes.
I guess initially it could be that 10 to 15,000 to get that, that manual, whatever you want to call it.
The vernacular
The
book.
vernacular
The
guide.
vernacular
Mhm.
book. Upfront cost might be a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think the impact of this would be significant. I think you'd see,
Yeah.
I think you would be proud of the result.
And I think, yeah, just when you look at these photos alone,
And, my only example of this, in my last assignment, that's one of the things, we established an on-call surveyor and engineer because it was constantly somebody had a problem, but we didn't know whether it was in the right of way or on private property, and having the ability to know that we have a surveyor that's under contract, that if we call them, then they, we know how much per hour for the surveyor or the crew and everything else, and you could, it just was expedient in that sense, and that turned over on a 24-month basis, so it kind of, it went through a rotation. So, and the same kind of concept here, so.
You know, I
And so-
can certainly see the problems of not having a turnover, but on this consistency idea that you're talking about, it might be nice if the guy works out pretty well
Well,
to keep it going. for
but
the
then you keep them
consistency
honest
part.
and you
Yeah.
go out for proposals
that's right.
again, and, if he wants to keep it, then
That's right.
he
There you
sharpens
go.
his pencil, so.
I like the idea.
right.
Well, thank y'all.
Do you have any more questions about the other survey as well? I mean, it's a separate project.
The visual preference survey.
Right.
Is that something that, the visual preference survey, that's something that is going to be included in that, or that, you said a separate
It's a
project?
separate
It's separate, yeah.
project. We
Yeah.
just were going to talk about it.
We talked about last work session too, I think, just want to get
Yeah.
that moving, so.
Mhm.
Do you have an estimate on cost? Or do we have an? it's just
Do
not
we
to
have an
exceed?
estimate on the cost of that
I
visual
mean, I
preference
think
survey?
they average around, somewhere around under 15 for what we want to do. I mean, they can go, they
They
can
can
be
be as much as you want them to
massive.
be.
But we're talking about an abbreviated version of that. And remember, we applied for the grant for 4,000 against that from the Realtors. So,
I
a
think we
smart
can
grant
maybe do a
grant.
bigger concept with the comprehensive land use
Right.
plan.
Right.
Right. But again, this is primarily for Greeno Road. I think that's probably the most key
Urgent
point,
need.
urgent need right now is for Greeno Road and start trying to deal with that because, that's not going to stop
Keeps coming
anytime
up.
soon. Right.
Mhm.
And, whoever we select would be a person that has experience in this and would do a good job. And I think it'd be a very, very worthwhile process to go through.
Thank y'all.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
So is that something we would just add to the next agenda, or?
The resolution's done.
Hmm?
I have the resolutions already done.
Oh, okay,
Both of them. No, for the next meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So those of you that are tuning in late, like me, thank y'all, and I apologize for coming in late, but I promise to be as efficient as possible doing this. So we got utility rates discussion next on the agenda. Is somebody here to talk about that?
Well,
Richard got out of town.
Richard Peterson is at electric.
Okay.
I think he emailed you guys.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Is there something I can help you with?
I don't really know. I don't really know what this was put on here for to
Well,
begin with.
I think we were looking for some more background before we vote on this. It's listed on the actual council
Right.
agenda for final adoption of these adjustments and all the different utility rates.
Did he did he email more
Mhm.
information?
He did.
Yeah.
He
That's what
did.
he
I
Did y'all
had,
get a chart?
I got several charts. Oh, you didn't?
Got the
Yeah, I
email,
got several
get a chart.
charts, and I had some questions or concerns about the different charts.
Okay, let me find that email.
Well, it may be on, and this actually might be
Give this to Robert. Those are mine.
I think Robert, this actually might be a good segue into something I wanted to bring up during this discussion anyway, is, over the last, I don't know, I guess 2 weeks since we've had that discussion here in our last meeting, we've gotten, obviously, I don't know about you guys, but any potential rate hike is not met with a lot of glee from the community. And so, so there's been some public backlash because of it, but that's going to happen no matter what the rate change is. Anytime there's any rate increase, there's opposition to it. But we've also heard, at least I have, from some of our commercial customers that have concerns. And again, I would expect anybody to oppose a rate hike, but there's been some request, at least to me, that we consider tabling this vote on the rate hikes tonight that are on the agenda until the next meeting, to have time to have some of those meetings. Obviously, we'd want Richard involved in any of those. And so I think that, I guess this is a good time to bring that up as at least a possibility. I think there's going to be somebody here tonight that's going to ask us to do that, or at least maybe multiple people here to ask us to do that. And so, at least, and now with Richard not being here and Jay, I think the rates would be across the board
Right.
questions about it. And so, this might be,
I'd be in favor of tabling it.
that might be a better
One
situation.
more time, had Richard here, and Jackson, the AMEA rep, I guess, for the council, he's not here. I ran the numbers based on my personal utility bill, and most of them went up, but I think the electric actually went down, so maybe if you're in a certain threshold, it goes down, but I know some commercial clients are concerned about what it would do to them, and I just haven't had any, I was just notified in the last couple of days about that, so I'd like to see
What impact
what
it
it would
would
do to
have
some
on them.
commercial,
Yeah.
write a commercial bill for some of our larger
Yeah.
customers.
So you're gonna table it?
I think we're gonna table it.
I do have one question. I am for tabling though.
Yeah, it was, I think our last rate increase was 2002. Is that
Yeah.
right?
10,
It's been a
Well, it's been a
while.
which
while.
utility?
Um,
Yeah.
And I don't think
Some of
that,
them
and I
were
don't know,
before
that-
that.
yeah, and I don't think that was across the board
No,
either.
that was not across the board.
And,
I think the water.
and we discussed this when we raised the solid waste pickup. I mean, that had been, I think, 18 years since it had been increased. And look, we want to be, since we own our own utilities, that should allow us the opportunity to be, if not the cost leader, close to that. And we want to effort to try to maintain quality service at the lowest or a very low price. But at the same time, I understand with what we're faced with, which is all these infrastructure needs and upgrades that have to be done, and so many of them that need to be done at once, it does make sense to include that or to at least seek rate increases as one way to potentially satisfy some of that, some of those expenditures. But I'm also not interested in rushing it without, doing something with some unintended consequence. I don't think we intended for any customer, whether that be a residential or commercial, to suffer some overwhelming increase. But
I was here last week, or the last council meeting, and I thought that he addressed the commercial side of it, that he thought that the commercial side of it would be the least affected. He actually said to me on more than one occasion that he thought this was
I think it's just for residents.
Sure.
was going to be the fairest way, and a lot of it's going to be on the front end, with our growth that we have right now, with the tap fees and stuff like that, and that's where a lot of our money needs to come from to start with anyway. I mean,
Right.
the growth around here is enormous, and we've gone from a 24% growth rate, which means I think we're going to have somewhere around 1,800 more water customers in just this year alone, somewhere between 1,200 and 1,800. That's what we're on schedule. Now, that is an enormous number for us to take on. And the only way we're going to be able to resolve that is to not just increase the rates, but the tap fees. And, what he did with the tap fees, because I sat with him, we talked about capacity and future capacity and who was going to use what. And that was what he built into that. And that's really, I think, a smart way to go. And I don't know if he explained that well to you.
we touched on that, and I think
Right.
you might be right about it. It may have little to no impact on commercial usage.
Right.
But I think if there are these concerns out there, then I think we should at least have that discussion with them, and
I'm all for it.
maybe do a better job of having us explain it to some of those commercial customers so that they understand exactly what changes will be made, if any, and how it could possibly affect them.
Right.
Was there ever a rate analysis performed?
Yeah. We had a rate analysis. In fact, one of the charts that he put together showed a rate analysis. Did you? I apologize. I don't know what you got, what you didn't
It's
get.
attached on that email.
Yeah, we
But I
see-
know that I saw it.
Right, not a
Yeah,
problem.
there's been a rate
Double check.
analysis from municipalities that are comparable, and not only close to us, but also comparable in size as far as customers go. So I thought he thought that we would be somewhere, we wouldn't be the lowest. He
Right.
said that, but he said we'd be on the lower end.
Yeah, the chart that I saw, we were, I think if I'm remembering right, now there were maybe four different comparisons, and
Right.
we were either second or third, so we tended to be in the middle after
Right.
after the increase went into effect, and I think that was four. And obviously there's some variables in that, because over a certain amount of usage, there are different thresholds that play into how that's calculated, so everybody's a little different. But yeah, if my recollection is, right now, we're the lowest. And this would put us somewhere in the middle.
Put us even on the highest on some.
Yeah, it put us towards the higher end on some, it did.
And I'd like to see, I mean, he provided charts, I guess I'd like to see some actual examples of customers, what that would do to them, because I'm not overly familiar with what different commercial entities, some of the larger businesses may generate
Right.
on an electric bill.
And it may be better, or at least more beneficial, to have some specific customers and using a month to month to
Right.
see exactly what impact it would have on some of these larger customers.
All right, so are you going to get with him and let him know what you want, or you want me to
I'm
express
emailing
what you
him
want?
right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I
So
I
you
called
want-
him this
so you-
afternoon.
what you-
It'd be
and
worth
realized he was
a
gone.
work session within itself.
It could be, and I know this is probably something that Richard absolutely loves to talk about, but and it may be something that requires a meeting outside of
I'd say
council.
warrant 2 people at a time, meet with Richard,
And-
because some of
and-
the stuff you may not want to.
Right. It
discuss
may be
in
something
a
that's
meeting
better
anyways.
handled better in a private meeting, because especially if we're talking about a specific customer and how it might affect their usage, they might not want their personal information talked about in the council
Right.
meeting.
I will say, I was expecting to get, when he sent us all the graphs, I was expecting to pop open some kind of computer-generated graph, but he did them all. Did them
It's
all
hand-drawn.
old school. It's handwritten
Handwritten.
and detailed.
It's
And,
dedication.
yes.
All right, well, I think this is probably something that deserves a little bit more attention, at least I do. And so I would,
Well, it's still important to jump on with a lot of questions still out there, and especially with the commercial and the citizens not knowing exactly how we can explain it to them. Would be a better effort if we knew all the facts prior to. I don't think there's such a rush to put this together, because everybody seems that, we need something. We do need an increase of some sort. Try to make it as fair as we can and get everybody's input as best as possible.
I think that's fair.
I
I
don't
think
think
it,
we're going to get everybody to agree on anything.
No, I don't think anybody, look, if
We have to make a
It-
decision.
it-
if doing this for almost 2 years now has taught us anything, it's that nobody agrees on everything.
Right. I think it'd be better to have something, so it's very small incremental increases. We just can't wait
No, I agree. I
8
agree.
years.
No,
And I
no.
think some of them are longer than 8 years.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they are.
But,
They are. Some of these, I think there's no doubt there's something that needs to be done, but trying to make it. What we want to do is we want everybody to understand what we're doing, and even if we talk about it in here, obviously from us talking about it,
Right.
we're not doing a very good job of explaining it.
I don't know. Listen, I listen to these things all the time, and I think you're doing a good job. I think it's been a good job of explaining it, but we have to keep in mind that in today's society, there's only going to be so much digestion that people want to.
That's right.
And I don't know, but I think that what he said is also a good start. If we had a sample of, Building X was paying this, and now they're going to pay that. I mean, that's something real they could see across
That's
the board.
right.
It's probably the best way to go about it.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I did it personally, it was like a 2.5–3% increase, but. just
And
need
for
to
8
sit-
years, really, it's over 8 years, but I think
True.
something to think about and at least start the discussions as we grow. I mean, there are so many infrastructure needs, and the reality is we need to look at the pros and cons of having a utility board that can handle and manage this huge asset. I don't want more restrictions, but at the same time, what happens is things like this are not addressed on a routine basis. And if that's their only job as a utility board, I think it's important to at least start talking about it, because this is just too big of an asset for our city.
I agree.
All right, so you want me to step back?
You are more than welcome to sit up here as long as you'd like.
Thank you.
I think you're going to have me back up in just a minute.
Anybody got anything else on that issue? All right. Committee updates. Jimmy?
Actually, I don't have a whole lot of update since the summer. I know library, I think, canceled for July. We do have an environmental advisory board at the end of the week on Friday. And historic preservation, they're looking at adding a couple new members. So we're waiting to see what happens with that. We need a quorum to make any of that official.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Robert?
The only update I have is remind y'all that the EAC has a meeting at 4:30 on Wednesday, and they have asked for council members to be present to discuss the special tax district and see where everybody stands as far as moving forward with that.
Okay. Mr. Boone?
Actually, the only thing I have is the harbor board will not be meeting in July due to, everybody's on vacation.
Okay. And the rec board's meeting was canceled, and we have some recycling and tree committee later this month, so hopefully give an update on that next. All right, that's all for committee updates. Do we have department head updates? I'm not going to call you out by name, so if anybody has got something they're itching to tell us, come up here and let us know.
I did want to take advantage of preempting, you have agenda item 22 tonight. Just to kind of give you the genesis of that, and I don't know if you kind of understand what's being asked of you. Thomas Hospital has procured a lot which is on the southwest side of the intersection of Ingleside and Horn Lane. And when they got the survey, they realized a lot of the paving surface of Horn Lane was on their property. And they called me and says, we'd like to clean that up. What's the process? And I got with Lisa and says, are you going to, since you've already done the survey, what they've done is surveyed off the portion of the encroachment, and they are wanting to dedicate it or gift it to the city to just correct that right-of-way encroachment. So it is my recommendation that it hadn't cost us a penny, and if we're maintaining Horn Lane, which we are, we need to be working on city property when we do that. So that's the genesis of that.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
You got anything else?
That's it. Everything's going swimmingly in Public Works, and
All right.
appreciate
Great.
all your support.
Great to hear. Anybody else?
I know that everybody takes a great interest when they start seeing new buildings go up, so I'm going to give you a heads up on a couple of things. They're getting ready to start another office building right there outside of Spring Lake, right next to Tim Simmons' insurance office. We have another medical office going in there. You will also begin to see a building that is going to be built in the parking lot just adjacent to the McDonald's and the Agave. There's a building that's going up there. It's a freestanding building in the middle. We're going to have a pre-construction conference with that builder probably next week. We want to be very careful about traffic control, and there's a lot of cars that go in and out of that parking area. We've got some other things going in, just so you know where the old Tuesday morning space was. We have a pet supply place that's we're issuing the permit for that. That's coming in, and we've got quite a few small commercial and businesses that are coming in. You're going to start seeing buildings pop up, and we have a couple of more bank permits, one in a building that's already going up, and then a couple of others. So, but just so you know, if you get calls, people want to know what's going on. That is those small commercial ones that have kind of been hanging on for the last few weeks. We're ready to start issuing those and getting them out.
Hardee's?
Okay. Hardee's is a tear down. They're going to tear that building
You know
down.
what's going on? I've heard rumors.
I've heard, well, the thing that I've heard was a Starbucks. That's what I heard, and I've got some folks that are not real happy about that.
remember, for all those that are listening, those are rumors.
Those are rumors. That is correct. That is correct. Until
Say that in a deep.
Do not come back like that's a fact.
till you actually see it going in, you don't know. But yeah, that's kind of what we got going on in town.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
I know everybody is painfully aware of how slow the tank is being painted. And I'm sure we're all getting beat up about the cell phones and stuff. And I tell everybody we're not in the cell phone business, but I get the anxiety. It's not good. I'd like to be able to report that it's better. It's slowed down. They didn't work this weekend. I've called them today to see where they're at. They did not call me back. So everybody's on the same page. The contract was awarded to a company named Utility Services, and they subbed it out to another company, and we can't get enough people to work. It doesn't have anything right now to do with anything about getting people through a screening process. It's just they don't seem to have enough bodies to throw at this project, so they're struggling mightily. And we put a letter together to go to the insurance bond. We're not to that point yet, but there's going to come a time where we're going to have to do something. The main focus is to try to get them to get going on it. And I wish I had better news for you, but I know that people, your constituents, are asking you because they're calling me all the time. And I'm telling them, what I can tell them. And I'm telling you exactly the same thing. It's painfully slow, and it doesn't seem to be picking up. Is there anything I can update you on that?
How long are we going to wait to send that letter?
Well,
The letter's gone, isn't it?
it is, but we just put them on notice. What we have to do is, I think that we'd all have to sit down and look at the pros and cons about, what's going to happen next. I will tell you this. I've asked a few people. I asked Richard Peterson, who's not here today, if we go ahead and pull their maintenance bond, for lack of performance, what would happen next? And I don't think that people are really sure what's going to happen next. I don't know. He thought that Travelers would come in and hire somebody and they would finish it. I was involved in one process before where the insurance company came in and offered us inconvenience money, and then we took the second highest bidder or second lowest bidder, and they came in and finished it. The other problem is that bidder ready to take over now? How long is it going to take them to gin up? How long is it going to take them to get in here? The best case scenario would be if they would just come in and get the daggum job finished. But I don't know that. I don't know if Ed Chapman, who's over it, who's looking out for our interests, is thinking it's going to be months still, and they're already beyond the 180 days. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to catch you up
If
on
you
it.
had to assess a percentage of completion to date, what would you say?
It's really low.
Like below 25 or 30%?
I'd say yes.
But we were gonna try to get the antennas or the towers back up
Yeah,
before
I-
the completion.
I want to be clear about that. And I wasn't involved in that, but I don't see how we can do that.
Okay.
And the problem is the cables have to be, they can't just be hanging, they have to be mounted. And so that would be on the bottom. So the part that wouldn't have been painted would have cables mounted on it, and the cables would be in the way. So I really wish I had better news. I looked at this hard on April 10th. I met with the mayor, I met with Lisa, I met with the police chief. That's when Dan left, and it became my problem. So since April 10th, I've been on it every other day trying to figure this out, and I wish I had better news for you. I can't make them do anything.
Since we don't know, a worst-case scenario, we have to get rid of them and see if we can put another contractor in place, being the second lowest bidder. Have we been in any contact with them to find out what their time is to?
If they're available.
Well, let me say
And if they're
this.
available, when
I
they're
asked,
available, how long it'll take them
Right.
to mobilize
right, I
and
asked
get
that.
started?
I asked that today, and I was going to ask him during the break. I don't know if I can.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's
Yeah,
why I
and
was
that's what
asking.
I asked Mike about it, and we weren't sure that you could actually do that, because I would love to pick up the phone and say, "Are you guys ready?"
Yeah.
But I don't think we can. Maybe they're listening now. I don't know.
And how common is it for us to award a bid in this kind of?
It's never
scenario and just have
happened.
them sub it out to a totally different?
Oh, well, subbing it out, I would say that, you and I talked about that, but we're going to have to address a lot of these things that weren't addressed in this time. But it's not uncommon.
It's
that
never
that
occurred.
happens.
It's like you learn from these lessons, and
Yeah.
basically, you're
And-
going to have to put into the bid specifications that whoever bids this does it. It's
Yeah.
not a function of third party or fourth party.
Yeah, because that's
Contractor.
that's part of the problem I run into, because I'll call the lead guy's name is Kevin, and he'll have to call the guy who's actually over it, and that guy will tell him something. That guy's not even here. and then he has to call the guy that's actually here. It's, and it's just a process just to try to get them to agree to anything. I mean, they send us this big glowing thing with Richard, and Ed Chapman, who's taking care of the CE&I for us, said that it's nowhere close to, some of the things that he had promised us. So we're going to have to sit down and look at this really hard, pretty quickly. If we can't get
I just want to
it moving.
mention quickly,
Sure.
too, that we did give the companies a long, heads up about the towers, and they pulled them off immediately. So that's part of the problem, too, is that we've been out of service for a long time, but it's because they took them off early. Marcus, do you have any idea, are they supposed to have a temporary plan while the water towers, the cell companies?
They are, Mayor. I believe y'all made a really great offer to them and giving them a second field out there by the water tower by Walmart to put additional cows. That's kind of really the main problem area between Walmart and
Right.
here.
Right,
And,
and we did do that.
And y'all offered to let
Right.
them do that, and nobody took anybody up on it. So they've got availability to put stuff at the site and additionally in the problem areas, and they haven't done anything to help their customers out.
Right, and that's what when people call me, that's exactly what, the first thing I say is we're not in the cell phone business, because we're not. But I realize they were on our tower, and it's convenient for them, and it costs them money, and they're just rolling the dice that this is all going to go away soon. The cell phone towers is one issue, but we've got one time to get this right, and then hopefully it'll be right for 20 to 25 years. So none of us, maybe you, but most of us won't have to deal with it again. And we have to take the opportunity to get it right, whatever that takes, whatever time that takes, we have to get it right this time. We haven't awarded any money yet, so that's at least one good thing. But we're going to really have to explore, if we take the next step, how long it's going to take somebody to get in here, how long we have to give them time to get out of here, and then we have to, settle up with them, whatever is not owed or owed, and then we have to start again.
Can you explain the water pressure issue,
Right. So,
too? That's the other.
So the other problem we have is, in case you don't know, water storage is in the tanks. That's where our storage is. And so our demand is great. We're not only pumping water into the system, but we have that to fall back on. We don't have that, and that's one of our main tanks. And so we don't have any storage. So if we have a main break, if we have unusual weather patterns, we're going to run low on water, and it's not going to be good. If we fall below 36 feet at the tank at Walmart, which is what we monitor all the time, and we do have an alarm on that. We have to shut the booster station off at Rock Creek, number one. And number two, this top floor at Thomas Hospital will not have any water pressure, and they will have problems moving their patients around. So we didn't expect this to go anywhere close to in the summer, and thank God it's rained a lot, which has helped us a lot. But, a drier month is coming. We can pump 8.9 million gallons a day. We've done that, the most we've ever done. But we can't sustain that. We could theoretically
I want to
pump
throw
10
out
million.
just a hypothetical, and it is hypothetical. If we find out if this other company is available, I mean, just to start getting Plan B in action, how much work is it right now to put this off for another year? I know you don't want to hear that, but let's just look at all the pros and cons, and knowing what everything we've gone through, that we could make a better plan for, I don't know how much money and how much time it would take to get everything back.
Well, let's be clear about one thing. They haven't finished inside. And
Okay.
that's a shocking statement in and of itself, because that's what they've been doing. To finish inside, they have to sandblast the whole inside. They have to clean the sandblast out, and then they have to paint it with zinc coating, and then they have to have it tested to make sure that there's no leaks or anything. And they haven't finished that. And so until they finish that, we can't put any water back in the tank.
Right, okay.
That's one thing. The other thing is we could stop not long after that, but there would be some things. We still would be probably 6 weeks if we said we were going to stop and we're just going to finish the inside of the tank and then to get the things buttoned up that we need to get buttoned up.
Could we
But
find a permanent place for these cellular towers somewhere else.
That's what I mean, that would, if we were going to stop and, you know, completely abandon this project for a year, that would be one of the things we'd need to do, because I think that the cell phone towers would tie us up legally. You know, I'm guessing
Right. Oh, no, I know
if
that
we
they
asked
would
them
have
to
to be
get back
put back on,
off and stay
right.
back off for 6 months, you know, and, but, you know, I'm open to any suggestions. You know, I've looked at this, like I said.
I was
I've met
saying,
with
this
Lisa,
would not
I've
be
met with you.
putting the project off, but just finding a permanent place
Right.
for the, just so we have that service, and then knowing that hopefully this will be finished.
Right. Richard Peterson told me he spoke to Jack Burrell and maybe you about buying the property or trying to buy the property right behind.
He mentioned it to me.
Okay. And that would be ideal, you know, and they could put a tower up there. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure, unless we made them to get off, I'm not sure they'd want to do it, because maintaining a cell phone tower and putting one up is, you know, a big cost and something that Verizon and them would have to share, and they would rather get back on our tank because it's higher and there's less maintenance for them to have to do in the long run. And that's why they're on there anyway, paying us to be on there. So I wish I had better news. Do you have any questions?
So we hadn't heard back from the bonding company?
Well, we put them on notice. What normally happens, what's happened in the past is bonding companies will come down and say, where are we at? We have no indication whatsoever that the bonding company has done anything since you sent a letter. I have no indication. Kevin Hamilton, the guy who's in charge of it, hasn't called me and said anything. The bonding company hasn't said we're aware of it. We haven't heard anything from anybody that I'm aware of, unless you know something different.
Richard sent them the letter.
Right.
He talked to me about it, we ran over the terms of it, and I looked at the bonds. And they sent the letter, I assume you sent it, I didn't see it in
I assume
the mail,
too.
but
Mhm.
in any event, that's basically outlining kind of where we were to them. It wasn't a call on the bond yet, but it was one of those, these guys have got to get on board, or else y'all are gonna be on the hook.
And usually what happens after that is the bonding company steps in, you know, starts mandating things and doing things on their own. But I don't have any indication that they've done that. And I assume Richard sent the letter, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you he told me he did. I thought he did. I can't remember our conversation. But if he hasn't, we need to.
I think just,
That's what needed, that was needed to happen.
Well, I'm assuming, like I said, I'm assuming it has happened.
I think just the Thomas Hospital alone and that liability,
Yeah,
we
can't-
have to move forward on
We're going to
Plan
have to
B.
do something. But I wanted, you know, I know you guys are probably getting asked, and I wanted to let you know where we're at. And I wish I had better news.
We wish you had better news also, but
I'm
we
sure you
appreciate
do. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
it. Eric's back.
Jay reminded me, I wanted to make sure, cell tower stuff, they come to us, and just so you know, we have been issuing permits for co-locates. I issued one today for Verizon to co-locate on the Parker Road Tower that's up there by the Bayshore Christian. That's a private freestanding tower. We've issued co-locate permits on the Twin Beach Road tower that's just south of Section Street. We've issued them for the tower that's out across from Three Circles. We had the one today on Parker Road. We've got the other one. There's a couple of others in town. But to back up what the mayor and Marcus said, we issued the permits for the temporary towers when they started coming off. That was months and months in advance of the start of that project. And I received there was a lot of email and phone call traffic that went back and forth, specifically with Verizon, because they wanted to do a very unique temporary tower. Originally, they wanted to do a 100-foot monopole that is not a temporary tower. It would have required a really substantial foundation. And we had some, discussions about that, because they all located back behind the Fairhope Avenue Baptist Church, and they would have had to have excavated a huge hole for the concrete foundation for that thing. They ended up going with something else, but this was 3-4 months ahead of the start of the work. So they came off early, and it was at their own decision to do that. But just so you know, and I know people are frustrated, I get a lot of calls and I read a lot of stuff. When we get permits in for cell tower work, whether it's co-locates or putting stuff back up, we are turning around and processing those within a day or two. There's a few things we have to check to make sure they're correct, but other than that, they're coming in the door and they're going out again immediately. So we're handling it internally with the city as best we can to help these providers increase their capacity if possible.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Anything they're dying to share? Going once? All right. All right, well, let's look at the agenda then. Going through this, number 5 is going to be Wayne. 6 is aquatic instruction down at the rec center or at the pool. Anybody, I don't know if we need anybody for that. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all the rate increases, which I think, based on this discussion, may be tabled. But if not, I think we have anybody need to discuss, we can see that. But I think 11 is rescinding the resolution to purchase fitness equipment. I don't think we need much explanation on that. 12 is the installation of the seasonal lighting from Winterland. We have somebody that's going to discuss that if need be.
I mean, I can. I'm going to market this weekend, and I'm going to meet with them, but it's going to be the same. We're going to use the lights we already have that we didn't use, and then start implementing like half of what their lights will be, because you can leave them up for 3 years. So that's what we're going to try to start implementing, and then by next year, it'll be all the new lights that can remain up.
Okay. All right.
Cross-trained assistant marina manager.
To do Christmas lights. That's on the list. He's not here yet, so he or she is not here yet, at least. All right, 13 is police uniforms. I don't know that that's.
It's an extension
Yeah.
at the same rate.
Next is re-roofing at the Fairhope City Services and Utility Building. Who's going to talk about that if we need it?
I can't.
Okay. 15, 10 marine pedestals at the docks. Lynn, you talk about that if we need somebody to. Purchase a camera system for the police station. Do we have a police officer here that's going to talk about any of that? Saw John out front. He's
If Jeff's here, he can.
okay. Jeff, I know you can hear us, so we need you for that. You don't have to run up here right now. That'll save your running for the meeting.
So they were already approved.
All right. Next is the purchase of a Ford Super Cab. Going through these. Another purchase of a truck.
For gas.
19, mailing, 3-year lease of a mailing machine.
Postage machine.
I figured that's what that was,
Yeah.
Lisa, thank you. All right. Next, 20 is a tractor. Let's see, 21 is job classification for an assistant marina manager. I guess if we have any questions about that, Lynn, can we ask you?
Leslie would have done that comp study,
Okay.
I think.
It was. And I mean, I don't think there will be any questions about it, but I'm just saying if there are, I'd like to be able to call on somebody if necessary. I'm gonna call on you anyway. 22, Richard's already talked about that. And then 23 is liquor license application. And I assume we'll have one of our officers in here to answer those questions, make sure it's all in order. Anybody got any questions, anything they want to add or comment on?
They already have a liquor license in there. There used to be over there by the Warehouse Bakery.
Oh, this is the District Hall barbecue?
It's,
Yeah.
it's the Texarkana.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now over at where the El Camino Taco Shack.
That's where they're moving.
Ah,
How
gotcha.
many
Lived.
of these resolutions are, is it from 11 to 1 pretty much, that are budgeted and
Budgeted.
just being reapproved?
I think, well, one of them's the rescinding of a bid.
Right. I just wanted to give y'all an
15
idea.
on, 15 are
From
not
15,
budgeted. It's not
okay.
budgeted.
So, but 11 on, except with the exception of 15 and the second to last, are just reapproving items that were already approved in the budget. And,
So hopefully we can be pretty efficient in getting through those.
I think we can.
or consider just approving them in the future.
That's okay. I knew you'd get there. All right, well, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the work session, and we'll see everybody back at 6 o'clock.